After I retired, life got quiet. I thought I was ready for the peace, but I wasn't prepared for the stillness. No more meetings, no more morning routines, just long stretches of time and the echo of my own thoughts. I realized that time, when it's not filled with purpose, can feel heavier than I expected. I didn't go on a shopping spree. I wasn't trying to fill a void with things. But slowly, over time, I made a few small purchases, practical things, simple things, that quietly changed the way I felt each day. Some helped my body. Others helped my spirit. A few of them helped me reconnect with nature, with my family, and with myself. If you're in your retirement years or approaching them, maybe something in this story will speak to you. These are the 8 things I bought after retiring. That truly changed my life. 1. A comfortable pair of walking shoes. I never thought a pair of shoes could change the rhythm of my life. I spent decades wearing stiff work shoes, polished and formal, made for offices, not for comfort. After retirement, I didn't need to dress up anymore. But I didn't realize how much my feet had suffered through the years until I slipped on a truly comfortable pair of walking shoes. They weren't flashy, just a soft, well-supported pair with memory foam soles and a breathable upper. But the first time I wore them, I walked farther than usual, just around the block, but it felt different, easier. My knees didn't ache as much, my back didn't complain. I felt lighter, steadier. That night, I slept better, and the next morning, I woke up wanting to do it again. That was the beginning of something I didn't expect, routine morning walks. It became a ritual. Sometimes I'd see the same folks walking their dogs. We'd nod or smile. Sometimes I walked alone, just listening to the birds or the leaves rustling. That silence started to feel less empty and more peaceful. There's something about walking that clears the mind. It's movement, but it's also reflection. Some days I'd think about old memories. Other days, I'd think about nothing at all. And occasionally, I'd just stop and stand in the sun for a minute longer than I needed to. It might sound simple, but buying those shoes helped me feel like I was still going somewhere, even without a destination. It gave me back a small sense of momentum, not the frantic rush of work life, but a steady, gentle pace that feels right at this age. I'm not training for marathons. I'm not counting steps. I just walk, and in those walks, I've found a surprising kind of clarity. If you're entering retirement and wondering where to begin, I'd say, start with your feet. Get yourself a pair of walking shoes that feel like clouds. The path you take doesn't matter as much as the fact that you're still moving forward. 2. A medical alert smart device, smartwatch or pendant. After I turned 70, something shifted, not in my body exactly, but in how I thought about being alone. I've always been independent. I like my space. But the truth is, as you get older, there's a quiet fear that starts to whisper in the back of your mind. What if something happens and no one's there? I never wanted to admit that to my kids. I didn't want them to worry, or worse, think I couldn't take care of myself. But after a neighbor fell in her kitchen and laid there for hours before anyone found her, it hit me harder than I expected. That's when I started looking into medical alert devices. Not the big clunky ones from TV commercials, but something simple. I ended up getting a smartwatch-style device. Nothing fancy, just one that tracks my heart rate, steps, and most importantly, has a one-button emergency call feature. Wearing it didn't make me feel old. Oddly enough, it made me feel stronger. It gave me peace of mind. I could go to the store, take a walk, or even shower without that little voice in my head asking, what if? My kids stopped checking in as often, not because they cared less, but because they knew I had a safety net. It also changed my relationship with health in a quiet way. Seeing my step count or my heart rate made me a little more mindful. Not obsessed, just more aware. I started moving a bit more, eating a bit better, sleeping a bit earlier. It's strange how a tiny device on your wrist can make you feel a little more in control of your day. No piece of technology replaces human presence. I still crave real conversations, real company. But in those long, quiet hours of the day, when I'm alone, that little device on my wrist feels like a quiet kind of companionship. Not because it talks, but because it watches out for me. If you're like me, still independent, still capable, but starting to think more seriously about safety, I'll tell you this. Investing in a medical alert device isn't giving up your freedom. It's protecting it, and that kind of peace is worth every penny. 3. Travel-inspired purchases. After I stopped working, time opened up like a blank page. At first, it was freeing, but soon after, that wide open space felt aimless. I didn't miss the job, but I did miss having a reason to leave the house, to pack a bag, to chase a sunrise. One day, my daughter sent me a link to something called the America the Beautiful Pass. It's a lifetime national park pass for seniors. I laughed at first. Me, wandering around forests and deserts at my age? But the more I thought about it, the more it called to me. So I ordered the pass. Just $60 for access to some of the most beautiful places in this country, forever. That small plastic card sat on my counter for a week before I finally used it. I started close, just a local state park an hour away, then a national park a few states over. And eventually, I rented a small RV, packed some snacks, a cooler, a few books, and I just drove. There's a kind of silence you find in the mountains or standing by a river that you can't get at home. Out there, no one knows your name, your past, your age. You're just part of the world again. I've watched elk walk past my window. I've made coffee on a picnic table under red rock cliffs. I've gone days without checking the news. Traveling didn't make me feel younger. It made me feel alive. There's a difference. Being alive is being curious, being surprised, being moved. I felt small again, in a good way. Like there was still more to see, more to feel, more to learn. Some of the best conversations I've had were with strangers at a trailhead or in a rest stop in the middle of nowhere. Other times, I didn't say a word all day, and that was just fine. You don't need to go far. You don't need to be wealthy. All you need is the decision to go. That park pass gave me permission to explore again, not to escape life, but to step into it more fully. So if you're retired and your world's started to feel a little too small, try expanding the map. There's so much out there still waiting for you. Number 4, a home garden kit or indoor herb garden. I used to think gardening was something other people did, people with green thumbs and big yards. I never imagined myself fussing over little pots of soil or reading about the best time to prune basil. But after I retired, the days grew quieter and the silence inside the house grew louder. One afternoon, while walking through a local hardware store, I passed a shelf with small herb garden kits. They weren't expensive, just a few starter pots, some seeds, and instructions I could barely read without squinting. But something about the simplicity of it caught my attention. I took one home, mostly out of curiosity. I started with mint and basil. The first time those tiny green shoots poked through the soil, I was surprised how much it moved me. It was just a few sprouts, but they were alive and growing because I had done something. I hadn't felt that little spark of creation in a long time. Every morning after that, I'd check on them. Just a few minutes, water them, turn them toward the sun. And slowly, my mornings began to feel less aimless. There was someone almost, waiting for me each day. Before long, I added more. Thyme, rosemary, a cherry tomato plant. My kitchen window turned into a tiny jungle, and I liked it that way. It brought life into the room. Something green. Something breathing. What surprised me most wasn't how much I enjoyed the gardening itself. It was what it did to my mindset. I became more patient, more observant. I began to notice the way sunlight moved across the countertop, or how the soil darkened when it was properly watered. And every time I snipped a sprig of basil to sprinkle over pasta, it tasted better. Not because it was fresher, though it was, but because it was mine. Grown with my hands, my time, my care. Gardening gave me something I didn't know I was missing, a rhythm, a sense of quiet purpose. It reminded me that even in retirement, even in a smaller life, I could still nurture something, still bring something new into the world. If you're finding your days a little too still, a little too repetitive, try growing something, even just a pot of parsley. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It just has to be yours. And watching something grow in front of you, it might just help you grow too. 5. A heated blanket or heated throw. I never cared much for gadgets or little comforts. For most of my life, I was the kind of man who could fall asleep on a stiff couch with a thin pillow and call it a good night. But something changed after I retired. Maybe it was age. Maybe it was just finally slowing down enough to notice how cold some nights could feel. Not just in temperature, but in mood. It was my daughter who first brought over a heated throw blanket. She said, "You'll thank me later." I smiled and tucked it into the closet, figuring I wouldn't need it. But one particularly chilly evening, I pulled it out, plugged it in, and sat down in my chair. The warmth was immediate, not just physical, but emotional. It wrapped around my shoulders like a memory. It was soft, even in the silence. I don't know how else to describe it, except to say that it made the room feel less empty. Since then, it's become part of my evening routine. I sit by the window, wrapped in that blanket, a cup of tea in hand, watching the sky turn orange, then blue, then dark. I read sometimes. Sometimes I just think, but always I feel held. As we get older, our bodies ache more easily. The chill settles deeper. But it's not just about comfort. It's about care. A heated blanket doesn't solve life's problems, but it does remind you, in the smallest way, that you deserve to be cared for. Even if it's just by yourself. There are nights when I listen to old records, curled up with that blanket, and feel something like peace. Not joy exactly, not sadness either. Just stillness with warmth in it. It's funny how something so simple, so often overlooked, could make such a difference. I don't need much these days, but I've come to realize the value in small comforts, the ones that ease the weight of quiet evenings. If you live alone, like I do, or even if you don't, and you find yourself feeling a little cold at the end of the day, don't underestimate the power of warmth. Not just from a heater, but from something that wraps around you like care. 6. A portable massager, neck, back, or foot. I'll be honest, I used to think massagers were for luxury spas and gift catalogs I never paid attention to. Back when I was working, if something ached, I'd walk it off or ignore it or chalk it up to getting older. But once I retired, there was no more walking it off, no more distractions, just me, my body, and time. It's funny. When life slows down, you start to feel things more. The tightness in your shoulders from years of stress, the stiffness in your lower back after sitting too long, the quiet ache in your feet from years of standing, walking, doing. One day, after bending over to tie my shoe and feeling that familiar sting in my back, I finally ordered a small portable massager. It wasn't expensive, it wasn't fancy. But the first time I used it, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Relief. Not just pain relief, but a softening of tension I didn't know I'd been carrying for decades. Now it's part of my wind-down routine, 10 minutes with the massager after dinner, usually while listening to music or just sitting with the window cracked open. Sometimes I use it on my neck, other days my feet. And every time, It helps me breathe a little easier. It's not about chasing youth or pretending I'm not aging. It's about caring for the body that's carried me through so many years. A simple act of kindness to myself. I used to think that was self-indulgent. Now I think it's wisdom. You see, when your body feels better, your mind follows. You sleep more soundly. You wake up less irritable. You move more freely. And when the aches don't dominate your day, you have more room for joy. If you're like me, stubborn, proud, slow to treat yourself, just try it. A small portable massager won't change the world, but it might help you feel more at ease in your own skin. And at this stage in life, peace in your body is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. 7. A hobby starter kit: watercolor, wood carving, or puzzles. After I retired, I thought I'd enjoy doing nothing. No deadlines, no phone calls, no early alarms. And for a little while, it was exactly what I needed. Quiet mornings, slow coffee, no pressure. But after a few months, that quiet started to feel empty. Like the silence wasn't peace anymore. It was just a reminder that my days lacked direction. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't bored exactly. I just felt like I was drifting. That's when my son gave me a watercolor starter set for my birthday. Brushes, a few small paints, and a sketch pad. "You always liked drawing," he said. I had, a long time ago. But that was before work, before life got so loud. At first, I was hesitant. I didn't know what to paint. I wasn't sure I even remembered how. But one afternoon, I sat down by the kitchen window, dipped a brush into water, and started. Just light blue strokes across the page. Nothing fancy, nothing planned, and for the first time in a while, I felt absorbed. That was the key. It wasn't about talent. It was about being lost in something again. My mind focused. My breathing slowed. Hours passed like minutes. The end result didn't matter. It was the process that gave me something back. Since then, I've tried other hobbies too. A few jigsaw puzzles on rainy days, a bit of wood carving with an old friend who used to work in construction. Even tried learning a song on the harmonica, though I won't be performing anytime soon. What I've learned is this: it's not about mastering something. It's about rediscovering the part of yourself that creates, not just consumes. When we stop working, we often stop making things, and that, over time, wears on the spirit. Having a hobby gives your day shape. It gives your hands a job, your mind a focus, your heart a lift. It reminds you that you're not done growing, that there's still more inside you than you've let out. Sometimes I paint things I remember, places I visited, faces I miss. Other times it's just color. I'm not trying to hang anything on the wall. I'm just trying to stay in touch with the part of me that still wants to express something. If you've retired and feel like your days are blending together, start something new. It doesn't have to be painting. It could be gardening, puzzles, writing letters, even building model trains. Anything that makes you lose track of time in the best possible way. The world tells us that retirement is a time to slow down. I agree. But I also believe it's a time to return to who we were before the rush began. And maybe, just maybe, find something new waiting for us on the other side. 8. A pet or pet-related supplies. I didn't plan to have a dog. In fact, I resisted it. For a long time, I told myself I didn't need the responsibility, that I liked my quiet mornings, my clean floors, my ability to come and go as I pleased. But life has a way of bringing you what you need, even when you don't ask for it. It was my son who brought him home, a rescue pup, small, brown, scruffy looking, nervous eyes. He said, "Just keep him for a few days, Dad. The shelter's full." I said no at first, but the look on my son's face and the dog's softened me. So I kept him for the weekend. Then a week. Then Well, now his bed is under my kitchen table, and I can't imagine my life without him. At first, it was an adjustment. I hadn't taken care of anyone in years. There were early morning walks I didn't want to take, accidents on the floor, chewed up slippers, but in between those moments were others, moments I didn't see coming. The way he sat beside me when I read, the way his tail thumped when I walked into the room, the way he looked at me like I was his whole world. It was quiet, steady companionship, not demanding, not complicated, just there. He got me out of the house more. I walked farther because of him. I talked to more people because of him. People at the park, neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years. We weren't just two old guys out walking. We were part of something again. But more than the movement, it was the emotional shift that surprised me most. When you live alone, it's easy to get stuck in your head. Days pass without much contact. But with a pet, even if no one else calls, someone notices when you get up. Someone cares that you're there. He doesn't fill the space left by others. No dog can do that. But he fills a space, a quiet, loyal presence. No judgment, no expectations, just warmth, just company. There are mornings when he climbs onto my lap without invitation and sighs like he's been through a long week. There are evenings when we sit in silence, the TV on but ignored, and I feel a deep sense of calm just having him near. I know someday I'll have to say goodbye to him, and that thought already stings. But I wouldn't trade this companionship for anything. He's brought rhythm to my days, light to my quiet hours, and joy in a season of life I thought would feel heavier. If you're in retirement and the silence starts to echo a little too loudly, maybe what you need isn't more noise, but a little heartbeat beside you, something small to care for, something soft to remind you you're not done loving yet. After sharing all this, I want to be clear. None of these things I've talked about were miracles. They didn't erase grief. They didn't fix loneliness. They didn't turn back time. But they helped. They helped me shape my days. They helped me care for myself again, not just physically, but emotionally. And more than anything, they reminded me that even after retirement, even after the world gets quieter, life still has room for new comforts, new habits, new joys. I think sometimes we believe that once we stop working, we're meant to slow down and fade quietly into the background. But that's not how I see it anymore. Retirement isn't the end of the story. It's just a new chapter, and you still get to write it. Whether it's a walk in the morning, a puzzle on the table, or a little dog curled up at your feet, these small things, chosen with care, can make your life feel more whole. So, if you're watching this and wondering what's next in this season of life, I'll tell you this: start small, take care of your body, tend to your space, feed your spirit. You're not done, not by a long shot. And if no one's told you lately, you still matter. Your time, your presence, your voice, all of it still counts. Thanks for spending time with me today. If you saw a bit of yourself in this video, or if something here resonated, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Really. And if you'd like more reflections like this, feel free to subscribe, not for the numbers, but so we can keep sitting down together like this, sharing what we've learned and maybe, just maybe, helping each other feel a little less alone. Take good care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.